hour. So welcome everyone to day one of the conference, track one. I'm Susan Morrison from GPLS Pines, and I'll be your moderator for the session, Fostering a Community for Collaborative Testing, presented by Terran McCanna from the Georgia Public Library Service, Llewellyn Marshall from NC Cardinal, and Elizabeth Davis from PALS. So before we get started, I'd like to thank our sponsors, the Evergreen Collaborative Development Initiative, or ECDI, Equinox Open Library Initiative, Unique Management, Midwest Tape, and Stat Courier. I'll keep an eye on chat, and then, as I mentioned, you can join the stage, but I assume maybe wait until the presentation is over. We can do Q&A, but that's up to you all. So I'll stop sharing my screen and then pass it over to you.
Thank you, Susan. So again, this is the Fostering a Community for Collaborative Testing. This session kind of came about, Katie and I at PALS often talk about how do we get more people involved in collaborative testing with upgrades and such. And so we thought we would put together a panel to share what we're doing and hopefully get some ideas from the rest of the community. So thank you all for joining us. And I'll hand it over to Terran to start.
Hi, everybody. I'm Terran. Elizabeth, how do you want me to tell you to go to the next screen? Just say next?
Yep.
Okay, next. I first wanted to just talk about a little bit of what we do here in Pines. There are 9 of us on the Pines team here in Georgia, and we have a lot of duties, but one of the things that we do within the team is test throughout the year. So there's really not a week that goes by without doing some sort of testing. We tend to concentrate on bugs that our libraries report to us or that we've found ourselves. First of all, so that we can get those fixed as well as we can or reported. We also develop features ourselves and work on testing those. I coordinate the Evergreen Bug Squashing Weeks and Feedback Fests throughout the year. I'll talk more about that in a moment. And so we're all involved in that. And then several of us also participate in the Monday collaborative code review sessions, and a few of us are also core committers. We also run a large upgrade testing process that we involve all of our libraries in. We do our annual upgrade in February, and we do intensive testing for 6 to 8 weeks before that. Next, please. So for our upgrade testing, we set up a test server with the newest version that we're going to be going to. We apply all of our local customizations, and we use a copy of our actual data and all of our settings that our libraries are used to seeing, so that when they do testing, everything looks very familiar. We have a Pines L email list that we encourage all Pines staff to participate in, and then we set up a separate one just for testing. So we promote the testing period in the regular Pines list and get people to sign up for the Pines testing list, so we're not cluttering up the regular Pines L list with testing content. We do encourage people at every single level of the libraries to participate and try to really emphasize that we need frontline end user testing, not just tech testing. We go through all of the upgrade release notes. We identify the new features, and we update our testing checklist that we put together. There is a link, which I just realized that none of you can click on right now. But in the slides, when you get the slides, the link will be clickable. And you can take a look at our testing instructions that we give out. We break the testing instructions up into 6 sections, topic-based. There is some overlap. A lot of the acquisition staff also do cataloging and vice versa. A lot of the circulation staff are also the ones that test the OPAC and the KPAC. The KPAC is the kids catalog, in case you're not familiar, etc. But we break it down just for ease of testing use. Next, please. We have each one of those 6 upgrade testing. Thanks, Elizabeth. The link is in the chat. Each of our testing checklists is broken down into questions that are task-based. So, for example, circulation checklist has register a patron. And we don't do step-by-step testing because we want people to use their own workflows to see if they have problems, because we all know that there's 12 different ways to do any particular thing. And people will click on very strange combinations of things that we don't predict. So we want them to test as naturally as possible. And they can pick and choose. So, if you're a new frontline circ person, you may not know how to do all of the different activities within Evergreen, but you're probably trained on checking in and checking out items, registering a patron first off. And so everybody can pick and choose from the questions which things they want to test. Next, please. Each one of the questions leads to a Google form, and it's a really simple form. Their email address. Most of our libraries are using Google mail service that we manage through GPLS, and so their email address automatically gets filled in. They just pick the question number, say whether their testing was okay or if they had an issue, report the issue, and submit. So we keep it as simple as we possibly can. We do ask them to report what operating system and browser they're using. Sometimes they don't know, but we get as much information as we can because there are always some inconsistencies between systems. Next, please. And then those Google Forms, of course, all go into Google spreadsheets. Our team monitors all of the feedback. And then anything that we identify as an issue, we copy over into a shared worksheet that's just within our team. And then we determine whether we can confirm that or not, whether Chris said in chat, yeah, sometimes we find out after the upgrade that they're on Windows 7 and they didn't test and nothing works well. But yeah, that's a different problem. So we then determine whether or not the issue is a bug, or if it's a configuration or a customization issue, or if it's just a staff training issue, which we always find out some of those issues as well. If it is a bug, we report it to Launchpad, which is the community like central source where all of the bugs and wish list requests for Evergreen are tracked. We develop fixes for anything that we can, apply those fixes to our test server and ask them to retest, and of course contribute those fixes back to Evergreen. And then we keep testers upgraded throughout the process. Next, please. So what we have learned over the many years that we've been doing this, having the test server set up as close to the real environment as possible makes it easier, reduces the barrier for them, reduces the intimidation factor, and only asking them to test things that they're comfortable with. I mean, we do they can test whatever they want to, even if they just want to explore different things in the software that they're not used to using. But by prioritizing the things that they're familiar with, that reduces a lot of the testing intimidation, making them require as little time as possible to test. A lot of times they're sitting at the desk and they have 5 minutes where they can just jump in and test one thing. So we'd like to have it where they can just jump in and out, and also retest things if we've applied fixes, and also making it as easy as possible to submit feedback through the simple Google form. That way they don't have to install any software or make a login or anything like that. They just click on it and go. And then also just repeatedly reminding them throughout those 6 to 8 weeks, because sometimes they get distracted and just forget. Next, please. I also wanted to talk just a few minutes about the Evergreen community testing. Next, please. I mentioned Launchpad. If you're not familiar with Launchpad, the URL is there on the slide, launchpad.net/evergreen. That is where all of the bugs and wish list requests are stored. Um, it looks overwhelming at first, I know, but once you poke around and get familiar with it, it's really not that scary. And I encourage everyone to create a Launchpad account. It's a free account. You just put in your username and password, and that will allow you to add feedback to tickets, create new bug tickets, etc. I want to emphasize you do not need to be a software developer to contribute. End users at any level are encouraged. Next, please. And just to emphasize, you do not need to be a software developer to contribute. Next, please. This is an example of what a bug in Launchpad looks like, along with a few things that are pointed out that you can do without being a software developer, without knowing anything about the code. You can just look at the bugs. You can add heat, which is where you click on the little does this bug affect you link? If it does, you add heat. That helps the developers prioritize what issues are the most important to work on fixing. If you see a new bug that has a status of new, and you can confirm that you're seeing that problem as well, then you can click on the little edit icon to mark that bug confirmed. There are tags. We have a list of approved tags. And if you click on the overview tab on the top left, it'll give you a link to where the list of approved tags are. Also, if you just start typing like circ, it will give you a drop-down list of circ-related tabs. Yes, Stephanie noted that when you're setting up your Launchpad account, it actually says Ubuntu One, but that's just the way it's authenticating, so you are in the right place. And you can add comments to existing bugs as well. So a lot of times someone will submit a bug or a wish list that they're asking for more information, or you might be able to confirm it but add additional information. Those things can be added in the comments. Next, please. We also hold 4 bug squashing weeks or feedback fests throughout the year. Bug squashing weeks are just for general bug testing and work. And feedback fests are usually associated with a specific upgrade. So like 3.15 just rolled out, and before that we had a feedback fest where we had test servers with the 3.15 beta version installed so that people could take a look at it. We do a lot of testing of various patches during both of those. So what we do is similar to what we do internally in Pines, but we set up several test servers, and shout out to Blake Graham Henderson and Jason Boyer if they're in here, because they both usually set up test servers as well. And so we set up several test servers. We have a spreadsheet that gets shared on all of the lists where you can look and see what the test server information is for logins and what proposed bug fixes have been applied to them. And then you can test and report your findings into the Launchpad, and the Launchpad links are all listed on that spreadsheet as well. So we tend to get the same 30 or so people participating in bug squashing weeks every time. And we would love to get more people involved. If you are new and you haven't done this before, but you would like to participate, feel free to reach out to me, and I will give you a little more overview that more than we have time to go through in here. But it is like I said before, you do not have to be a software developer. You don't have to look at the code. You just have to know how the software works and how you would like it to work. And there is a link to an example of one of the previous spreadsheets on the slide as well. Next, please. Also, for the people that are more technically inclined, even if you have not done any Evergreen development yet, you are welcome to pop into one of the collaborative code review sessions that we do every Monday at 2 p.m. Eastern. Jane Sandberg is kind enough to host these. She actually doesn't even work for an Evergreen library anymore, but she just loves us so much that she can't stay away. So she is wonderful and helps us a lot. Next, please. As far as community testing, you know, everything can always get better, but we have made a lot of improvements over the years that we've been doing it to make it as easy as possible for people to participate. Again, we provide test servers. They don't have any real data. They just have generic data on them with shared logins that anybody can use. Again, testers can spend as much or as little time as they're able to during that week. You know, some people can spend a whole week. Most people can only spend, you know, maybe an hour here or there. But even that little amount of time can do a lot, can make a big difference. Again, make it as easy as possible to provide feedback. All you need to do that is set up a Launchpad account. We also make it easy to sign off, and I won't get into the sign off process now, but you don't have to apply your sign off to a bug fix with code. You can actually do that through a comment in Launchpad, so it's very easy. And we add a little bit of competitive motivation in there with the tracking chart as we keep it updated with everyone's names on the spreadsheet with how much work they've done. And everybody loves to see their name online. So that helps keep people motivated. Next, please. I think that was my last slide. Yep.
Thanks.
And we'll take questions at the end if that's all right.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm Elizabeth Davis. I'm the project manager for Spark, which is the Pennsylvania installation. We're hosted by Pales. We have a couple different levels of testing with Pales and our Spark consortia. We're a relatively new team. Katie and I are only been at the organization for about 3 years. And we're looking for a third person to join us at the moment. So we've been kind of cycling through how we want to do this and trying new methods. So this is kind of how we are right now. But after seeing Terran's and Llewellyn's slides, I'm like, oh, I have to scrap everything I'm doing and I'm going to redo it. So, but for now, we're doing upgrade testing. We upgrade every November, and usually we go 2 steps. So we're on 313 now, and we're anticipating going to 315 this fall. So we have 2 test servers. Usually we upgrade both and then have testing with our staff, and then we open the testing to everyone in the Spark group, in the users group, and we, just send out emails looking for volunteers. We usually document all of the new features, all of the bug fixes that we feel are most significant or have been reported by Spark users, and just kind of encourage everyone to test. I do like the idea of having a separate listserv, so I might be getting one of those set up just for testers. And it tends to go fairly well, just like Terran was saying, that you get the same group of people testing often. So we kind of have our committed testers, which is really helpful. We also have beta testing for development. So usually we reach out to users who have either reported a bug that is impacting them or requested specific development. And then we reach out to anybody else who has commented on or been impacted by the bug. it tends to go pretty well with those groups because they have the specific thing that they're looking to get solved. So it works out really well with them. We also encourage other people who perhaps maybe don't have that workflow or are not impacted directly by the bug or things that we're trying to solve with the development. We kind of find that adding that third neutral party in a way kind of gives us a new perspective and maybe consider things that we haven't considered when we were reviewing the bug. The same with our piloting new services. We're adding Kipu this summer. So we added folks who are genuinely interested, who requested the feature or service, and also people who have commented or been impacted with support tickets on bugs related to like the online registration process. We also try and target groups. So if we have a certain system within the group or libraries who have a specific coordination or configuration, excuse me, so that we can test the abilities of the new service. So like with Kipu, we wanted to test with the system, we wanted to test with an individual library, we wanted to test with perhaps maybe library systems that have individually different workflows at each organization. So just really trying to put it through its paces. And then we also have staff testing. So those are the fun finding of bugs and filing bugs within Launchpad. And then periodically we review all of those bugs to look for development projects. And then we also participate in the bug squashing and feedback fest. So that's usually a lot of fun. So the ways that we're trying to build a stronger community for testers within Pales is we do general calls to action on the listservs. We send out emails. When Bug Squashing Week is coming up, we send out our Feedback Fest. We try and attend all of our users group meetings and kind of encourage those folks to attend the Evergreen interest groups as well. We've tried holding virtual office hours to kind of walk people through like how you do testing, and answer any questions. We kind of walk folks through how to do testing for Feedback Fest and Bug Squashing Week. We test with them. We're trying to really build their confidence in that. We've also tried to do on-site visiting. They really like when they visit because I bring donuts or like coffee or something just to make them excited. But it kind of builds their confidence too, so that they can ask any questions. They don't have to, email a whole list. They can just ask me directly what we're working for. And like when we do testing, we'll work or target like a specific library that does that, again, that specific workflow. So if we have a bug and no one has technically like said they were impacted by it, but we know that library X, uses this workflow and we know they're going to hit it eventually, we try and make sure that we talk to them and have them do testing. We have a good list of volunteers that we usually kind of tap in and be like, hey, would you be interested in testing again this year? We really rely on you and value your input. And what we started doing last year is having paid contractors. We know that not every library staff member has time within their work day to do testing. So we started having folks submit applications and test. We have a couple who do this work for the upgrade for cataloging or things like that. We're currently in the process of a dedupe, so we're going to be paying a contractor to help us with looking at some of those matches. And this year we're going to try pizza parties. We're trying to follow that idea that, if you feed them, they will come. So if any of our Spark libraries are in attendance, at this session, please let me know if you would like us to come during upgrade testing time, and we'll bring pizza. So it's just, again, trying to build confidence and, yes, feed them and they will come. Just building confidence and so that, again, not letting it be too intimidating. Terran really focused on that, and it's something that we're striving for. So hopefully, as we do these annual projects and upgrades and testing, we kind of build a good core group. Again, just some tools that we're using currently is the listserv. We use Confluence for our ticketing system, and so we're going to be using that. We set it up similar to a message board, and I have some screenshots. And then we have the support ticketing system as well within Pales, as well as the launch pad. We're using that as well. So I do like the Google form. That does seem really easy. So maybe we'll be evaluating that as well. So this is just a sample of what we're setting up kind of in our Confluence pages. It's kind of like a message board almost. We're going to have info about our upgrades. So we have our checklists, our training schedules, and any recordings they can review. And then we'll be having kind of info about the bug, how to test it, steps to test, and then any documentation about the bug that we have, or new feature in this case. So in some instances, the step-by-step instructions are helpful. And then in some, maybe we ask them to perform the task and just document what issues they run into, just to see, again, since there are so many ways to do everything in Evergreen. And then this is just an example of our beta testing. We have goals, and then we have testing scenarios and things like that. Something that we find is helpful is giving them parameters. So like if we just say test it, it's kind of like, okay, well, what am I looking at? What am I testing? So we've been trying to frame the testing in such a way that giving them those parameters and scenarios so that they can recreate a situation to test and see if they hit the bug again. Something that we are struggling with is the learning curve for when we're testing on community or developer servers. We have a lot of staff who are really well versed in their settings and their library setups, and it kind of throws us for a curve when we have to explain like the concerto data set or how the libraries are organized or things like that. So we've been trying to put a concerted effort in trying to make comparisons, or when we're setting up like a developer server with the developer, like here's a rough idea of our org structure. Can we, like, here's an equivalent, like say if you're in, because we have a few libraries that are in 4th org unit tiers. So we try and make sure that we have that similar setup when we're testing. Again, recruiting volunteers, library staff time is at a premium, and so making volunteering as easy as possible and as rewarding as possible is a priority. And then again, we're just still kind of testing the waters on how to track those testing issues and things like that. We were using spreadsheets, and now we're kind of moving hopefully towards something a little bit more collaborative. So if anyone has any other suggestions, we would be open to them as well. So I will pass it over to Llewellyn.
Hey everybody, I'm Llewellyn Marshall and I'm with NC Cardinal. I'm a software developer, so I think my part of the presentation is going to get a lot more technical, but I'm hoping that it will generate some good discussions. All right, let's move on to the next slide, please. So there are 3 major levels of testing at NC Cardinal. The first is day-to-day simple fixes and changes to templates. So this is stuff like adding new links or buttons or changing colors and text. For these small updates, the testing is very short and sweet. Typically, it's only going to require input from the user who placed the ticket. The next level of testing is for bug fixes and new features, such as our GeoSort hold targeter. This required a lot of back and forth between myself and Mobius during a code review process. Then by NC Cardinal staff, typically our project manager, Will. And then we assemble a group of volunteers from across the consortium to run through several test cases that we develop. And I'll go into more detail on that later. So the last level of testing is for our major version upgrades. This happens every fall. We have a group of about 130 volunteers who have access to a test version of our site with the next version of Evergreen. We ask them to run through and try different parts of the system, such as checkouts, reports, and acquisitions. Like Terran, we want them to test their normal workflow. All right, next, please. Most projects start their life as help desk tickets. NC Cardinal has a publicly available page where any staff member or patron can submit a ticket to us. These tickets are the main channel of communication for the development and review process. Next, please. Once work has been completed on a ticket, we organize testers using our project management software, Basecamp. Basecamp allows us to create different groups that we can put users into. The Evergreen upgrade group is that pool of 130 volunteers that I mentioned earlier. They are the ones that are tasked with testing the next version of Evergreen that we're going to use. Previously, we had a group known as the User Experience Committee, and we would task them with testing new features and complicated bug fixes. But we've had to move towards a more general discussion model of testing. Next, please. So here's an example of the test plan that I wrote for NC Cardinal's password overhaul project. So let's go over the key points of that test plan. There are a few different elements that go into it. Next, please. So first, we need a clear explanation of the problem. That can include steps on how to replicate the issue and an explanation for why it's important. Next, we have step-by-step actions that the testers need to take. Then we provide a lot of screenshots to make sure that testers don't get lost. Next, we tell them about any known issues that might come up during testing and how to get around them. And then lastly, we let them know about the expected outcome of the test and how that's going to differ from how it was before. Next, please. So far, we've only discussed testing from the user perspective. When the user has no knowledge or access to the code, this is called black box testing. When a tester does have access to the code, this is called white box testing or clear box testing. When the tester knows what's going on behind the scenes, they're able to make informed decisions about what to test and how to test. And there are a lot more tools at their disposal. Next, please. Modern web browsers have a console which will display error messages and debug statements. Reading the output of that console can give testers essential information for diagnosing issues. Even with black box testing, we often ask testers to send us the output from the console. Next, please. So in Google Chrome, testers can access the browser console by pressing Control, Shift, and I. Errors are going to show up in red, while warnings show up in yellow. Next, please. The console isn't just for reading output. Testers can enter in commands to view and change elements of the page by typing their names into the console. In this example, we've used the console to view the page's field mapper. Next, please. The next tool I want to talk about is the breakpoint. Breakpoints pause the execution of code and allow the tester to view and modify data. Not all programming languages support this feature, but JavaScript does. So we can add a breakpoint to the scripts of a page without needing to redeploy or rebuild. Next, please. JavaScript is all executed client-side, meaning that testers are able to modify their version of the script. Testers can view their scripts via the Sources tab of the browser console. In this example, I'm on the Patron Edit page. I've selected the file we want to observe and located a particular function that I'm interested in testing. Adding a breakpoint is easy. All we need to do is write the word debugger with a semicolon and save the file. I've added this one to the send test email function of our Patron Edit page. Next, please. So let's see what happens when this breakpoint gets hit. So I just click the send test email button. So now that code is paused and we can have fun in the console just like we were doing before. Next, please. So debugger statements give us access to data that the console wouldn't normally have. So in this example, we have the variable $scope, and this has access to everything in our AngularJS application. And by invoking scope.patron, we can see all of the user data currently accessible by that function that we're testing. This can be an essential way of making sure that the function is getting the data that we expected. So we've talked about black box tools that everyday users can access, but what can a developer do to facilitate testing? One example I want to talk about is called stubbing. Stubbing is when the tester simulates the output of a function that's vital for testing, but not currently what's being tested. This can be especially beneficial when the stubbed function has a lot of overhead. So let's see a real-world example. Our Stripe payment form was having formatting issues, and I wanted to be able to see the form in the state it would be in if I had made a payment. So what I did was I stubbed the data that would have come out of Stripe's API so that I could test that payment form without having to make a real payment. This entailed creating a fake object to contain the data that the API would have returned. Next, please. So Stripe was essential for that test, but it was also outside of the scope of the changes that I was looking to make. And we don't have the ability to change Stripe's API, so any problems with it would be outside of our control. So I guess we're opening up for questions.
Yeah, are there any questions or anything anyone wants to share about their testing and collaborative work?
I'm always interested in hearing what other libraries are doing so I can see what we might be able to incorporate into ours.
And I think folks can join the stage if they'd prefer to talk. Is that true, Susan?
Yes, I think if you click the join stage button, you should be able to turn your camera on and mic if you want, or just the mic.
And Jennifer is asking, have you had any issues with testers using the wrong server, i.e. real checkout on the test server? Yes, absolutely. We do change the banner at the top of our test server to bright red as a attempt to get library staff to realize when they're on the wrong one. It still happens sometimes. But yeah, we've definitely had that happen.
I've done it, and I was the one coordinating the testing. So we actually ended up having to change one of our server names because I kept typing the address in wrong. So yes, it does happen, unfortunately.
Yeah, we get that a lot too at NC Cardinal.
People are usually very gracious about it, but it's kind of heartbreaking to have to tell them, like, you're on the wrong server. I'm sorry. So, Gina is asking, when finding volunteers with testing, do you try to get end users in different departments, for example, children's reference, etc.?
We leave that up to the libraries because since we're a state agency and we don't work, they're all member libraries. We're a consortium, if anybody doesn't know how we're set up, which I'm sure a lot of you don't. So it's really up to each library and library director to decide whether they're going to allow their staff time to test or not, and or encourage them, hopefully. So we kind of take what we can get, but we do try to get people that are front end users. There's not a whole lot of control we have over it.
Yeah, our group at NC Cardinal is so large, I think it kind of covers the whole spectrum of library employees. So usually it's just people coming in and saying like, oh, I tested the reporter, I tested acquisitions, I tested this or that.
We do monitor as the Pines team is reviewing the testing feedback sheets, if there are questions or topics that we see haven't been tested at all, we do try to kind of repeat those questions and get more people to focus on those. Sometimes that will get people to test that haven't logged in before, even if they haven't had time or interest in testing. If they see, oh, well, I know how to test that, they might jump in and test.
Kate is asking if our consortia leadership has not implemented any testing framework. What's the simplest way to start?
If you don't have the ability to set up your own, are you talking about the technical testing framework or the process testing framework? If it's technical, like if you don't have access to your own test server, there are some community test servers that are always set up. Those are linked on, I can find the page, but those are preloaded with just basic data, and they can be poked and prodded at.
It looks like or Kate is referring to the process of it, not the technical. So
We started out years ago just with I think the first time I actually did testing when I still worked at one of our libraries before I moved to the Pines team, I think there was just like Word documents that were sent out asking people to test with a list of questions. And then once we had access to shared spreadsheets, we just started out with a giant testing spreadsheet. But I mean, I think what we do is very, very basic, but it's also easy to manage, which is just a combination of Google Sheets and Google Docs, just with basic questions and information instructions.
Yeah, Basecamp is nice for this because we can make a thread and you can, put in formatted text and images, and you can really lay out your like step-by-step testing process. And then because it's this discussion board model, people can chime in on the conversation and give feedback.
Jessica is asking, do you anonymize patron data on your test servers, and does that cause any confusion? If so,
We don't for our internal testing. Of course, with the public Evergreen community testing, it's all concerted data, so it's all fake. But for our Pines testing, we don't. We keep the same logins and the same patrons, so they can actually compare, what happens. They can use their same logins with their same permissions, etc.
we have a similar setup. We find that folks do best when they have similar like experiences from production to test. So we try and keep it as close to the same as possible.
Yeah, we have an exact duplicate of our database, so all the logins, all the patron information is all the same. And I think that's beneficial because, if there's something particular about your setup, maybe with hold policies or org unit settings, something that might be hard to track down, you've got, your exact replica. So whatever happens on your test server is what's going to happen in production.
Courtney asked, how often do you do upgrades? Biannual, annual, other? Pales does a annual upgrade, and then we have step upgrades through the maintenance windows.
That's basically what we do too.
Yeah, it's every fall for NC Cardinal.
Let's see. Chris is recommending that folks copy the Pines testing checklist as a way to get started. I'm not gonna lie, I looked at them and I'm like, ooh, these are nice. I might ask to copy them. So, because we usually tell folks, just just do your normal workflows. And then they kind of, I don't know what happens. It's like a deer in the headlights. They're like, what? What do you mean? What are my normal workflows? Like just like checking a book, check it out. So I think, again, definitely having those checklists and things specific is helpful. So.
And I do, yeah, I do. I said it before, but I do absolutely recommend just asking them to like test check out rather than telling them how to do it. Because if you tell them step by step, they'll just follow the steps. They won't do what they're actually doing on a day-to-day basis, which may vary wildly from what you expect it may be.
I'm just skimming through the questions. Kate is asking, I know this is basic, but how do you decide what to test? Just using release notes, roadmaps, or just a more general workflow of users? For us in Pales, we do what we consider major bug fixes, so ones that we have identified as specifically being impacting Spark users, new features, things like that. And then we'll go through and look at release notes and see if there are ones that maybe a user hasn't marked as being or submitted a ticket on, but we feel is notable. So kind of going off vibes for us.
Yeah, we go through the release notes. That's the first step. And then seeing like, all right, this area has had major changes. We know this is going to affect a lot of people. So that usually determines where our focus is going to be.
Oh, I didn't mention it in my presentation, but we also, if there are sections that have really major changes, like with reports this last time or um, record buckets, we tend to do a lot of internal testing first, and then we'll usually make a little video demonstrating the changes. Sometimes we'll actually do online training sessions. Susan, who's moderating here, did some for the new reports interface that were really helpful. And that way they had a chance to get a little overview before they jumped into testing.
John asked, do consortia staff do testing before opening up to library staff and volunteers? And how much do you decide on fix before sending it out to libraries? For Pales, we do testing an initial wave, and then we write, and that helps us write up documentation, add heat to bugs that we've found or file bugs that we have found, and do those pre recordings and things. So
Yeah, we do that too. A lot of that we do at the time that we're applying our local customizations, especially for most of our local customizations are for the OPAC. And so I walk through all the screens as I'm applying those and fix whatever had conflicts and see if there's anything that's changed before, so they don't look at all of our messy broken code.
So I think we definitely have the NC Cardinal staff do some preliminary walkthrough stuff, but it's usually pretty basic, and I think that's because we're all like seasoned users of those admin pages, and I think it's the main focus of our testing is really from the end user perspective, circulators, catalogers, that type of thing.
and then I think Jessica asked, have you ever uncovered anything in testing that caused you to delay an upgrade, or do you go on with the upgrade as scheduled with caveats? That's a really good question. We didn't find it during testing, but not until we actually went live. But the new Angular reporter, there were some bugs that specifically caused us to roll back to the legacy reporter for a couple of months, and then we relaunched it. So, but that I think is like the first time we've ever hit a bump in an upgrade where that caused us to have anything like that happen, like any actions like that.
Chris mentioned in chat, when we first moved to the web client, we had initially intended on moving everything to the web client, but cataloging wasn't up to par with what catalogers needed. So we ended up doing a combination web client plus installed Zool client for a year before enough of cataloging was transferred over. There's been a few other times, I can't think of any exact instances where we've come very close, where if something big didn't get fixed, we would have had to delay, but it's always managed to get fixed right at the last minute.
So I don't believe that we've had a full-on delay. There have definitely been bumps in the road, but for the most part, we're able to either find a patch, create a patch, or find a workaround. I think we did have to kind of point people towards the old reporter until the new reporter issues could be worked out, but that was a very short period of time.
I hate to cut any conversation short, but we are at time. So thank you so much to Elizabeth, Terran, and Llewellyn, and for everyone who contributed to the conversation in chat.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.